Hey friends, it's me, your girl, Krista Denise, also known as KD, here with day 28 of Black History Month. Now, it's late. It's 11:28 p.m. I done just got in a little bit ago from church. We didn't have revival. Was ending the church consecration. So I done laughed, cried, shouted, praise tonight. That's why I look the way I look. Because we had a time. I have wept before the Lord this evening. But I refuse to let day 28 of Black History Month go by without doing my day 28, okay? I wasn't letting it carry over into March. Day 28 gonna happen on the 28th day of Black History Month. We're gonna close out with a banger. And this is a person who you should absolutely know. If you haven't heard about this person, where have you been? What you been doing? I learned about this woman early in my childhood in elementary school, and I just learned more about her over the years, and she is like a favorite of mine. She is one of my Black History heroes, and I just want to highlight her during Black History Month because she deserves, hear me, deserves. And that person is none other than Harriet Tubman herself. Now, sis was born in 1822, and she transitioned to be an ancestor in 1913. Her moniker at the time, she was known as the Moses of her people because she led over 300 people from enslavement into self-emancipation and freedom, okay, after making the journey herself. So we're going to just dive right in, right? Harriet Tubman, she is clearly considered one of the most courageous, strategic, and determined figures in American history. You hear that? Not Black history, American history. She was born into slavery in Maryland, but she escaped, and she dedicated her life to freeing others through the Underground Railroad and additional justice activities once slavery ended. She personally led over 300 people to freedom, working as a conductor on the famed Underground Railroad. She was a Union spy during the Civil War and later a suffragist and community leader. She stayed busy her whole life through. Her legacy as a freedom fighter, an abolitionist, and an activist proves that one person's courage can change the course of history because she absolutely did that. Her philosophy was, I never ran my train off the track and I never lost a passenger. She said, I'm good at what I do. So she was born Araminta Minty Ross around 1822 in Dorchester County, Maryland. Her parents were also enslaved. She later helped to lead them to freedom. And she was forced to work in the fields from early childhood. She definitely worked in brutal conditions, enduring whippings, backbreaking labor, and near starvation. She also suffered a severe head injury in her early teenage years, teen years, when she was hit in the head with a 2-pound iron weight by an overseer who was trying to stop another enslaved person from running away from, I believe, being punished for something. So this caused her lifelong headaches, dizziness, and sudden sleeping spells, something like almost like narcolepsy. But it also caused her to have very, very vivid prophetic visions and dreams. And she believed that these dreams and visions were messages from God. And she used them to guide her on her many missions throughout her life. So her early suffering helped to build in her a resilience, a determination, and a very deep faith in God. She escaped to freedom, or as I like to say, self-emancipated in 1849. She did it by herself, using the North Star and the secret networks of the Underground Railroad to reach Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, a free state at the time. But instead of staying safe in the North, she risked her life again and again and again to go back south and to help free other people, starting with her family. Her escape taught her one thing. Freedom wasn't enough. She had to make sure she went back and helped other people find freedom. I love that. She became the most famous conductor on the Underground Railroad, leading 19 dangerous missions back into the South. She never lost a single person that she guided to freedom. She traveled mostly at night on foot. She used rivers, swamps, and forests to avoid detection. She used secret codes, disguises, and hidden messages to communicate with other abolitionists. She led people to different safe houses or stations where Black people, Quakers, and abolitionists helped them. She also made it a point to carry a gun at the time. Now, one reason obviously was protection. Okay, so she said, I'm gonna protect myself. But also, one of the reasons she never lost a passenger is because if somebody was like, oh, I just want to go back, or I'm tired, or I can't go on, she basically said, you go or you die. Ain't no two ways about it. You're going to keep going and get the freedom, or you're going to die where you stand, because I cannot risk you being found or being caught and giving away this very valuable information and blocking other people from getting their freedom. So everybody made it to freedom because sis was not playing. Her strategy, her fearlessness, and her faith made her the most successful conductor in the history of the Underground Railroad. She used a myriad of methods to outsmart slave catchers. She had a reward on her head at that time that was a $40,000 bounty from slaveholders who were tired of her taking the people they felt entitled to own. She constantly changed routes, though, so she never used the same path twice, making her harder to detect. She disguised herself in a multitude of ways. She wore men's clothes sometimes. She pretended to be an elderly woman. She carried chickens or laundry that looked like a domestic worker. Sis said, I know how to blend in, play with somebody else. She also sang spirituals as secret messages, right? There's the song Wade in the Water, which meant run through rivers to throw off the bloodhounds. And then there was Go Down Moses, which was a sign that an escape mission was about to happen. I love the ingenuity. She was a master of deception, military tactics, and most importantly, survival. She was a Civil War hero. A lot of people don't know that Sis Harriet was a Civil War hero, and she was the only woman, I believe, in the Civil War to lead a successful mission. Play with it. So during the Civil War, which took place from 1861 to 1865, she joined the Union Army to help fight against slavery. First, she was a nurse and a cook, and she helped to care for wounded soldiers and freed enslaved people. Then she was a spy and a scout. She led secret missions behind Confederate lines to gather intelligence. This woman was everything. Then she was the commander of a raid. Again, the only woman, I believe, in the Civil War to lead a successful military mission. In 1863, she led the Combahee River Raid in South Carolina, freeing over 700 enslaved people, making her the first woman in U.S. history to plan and lead a military operation. She was that girl. Her military skills were so respected that she was actually paid as a Union scout, although she was still paid less than white male spies. We're still dealing with the pay gap today. After the Civil War, she spent her time fighting for women's rights and helping the poor. She worked alongside Susan B. Anthony and other suffragists to fight for the rights of women and for equal justice for women. She gave speeches advocating for women's voting rights, using her life story as proof that women were just as strong and capable as men. And based on her story, who was going to argue with her? Her work helped to push forward the fight for women's suffrage. She also opened a home for elderly Black people. She used her own money to open the Harriet Tubman Home for the Aged in Auburn, New York in 1908. She provided housing and care for elderly Black people, especially formerly enslaved individuals who had nowhere else to go. A heart full of love and compassion. And even in her old age, she dedicated her life to helping others. Now, she obviously faced several challenges. There was a general lack of recognition. While she was one of the greatest strategists at the time and leaders in American history, she's often overlooked because she's a Black woman. Despite her contributions, she was denied a military pension for years and struggled with poverty, unfortunately. And she had the health issues based on that head injury from her childhood that caused her lifelong pain and seizures, in addition to her fainting spells. But she overcame every challenge with faith, strategy, and resistance. In 1913, Sister Harriet Tubman transitioned into being an ancestor at the age of 91, surrounded by family and friends. She was buried with military honors in Auburn, New York, and her final words were, "I go to prepare a place for you." She'd left behind a legacy of courage, sacrifice, and leadership that could just not be contended with, okay? Who was going to say she didn't deserve? I wish somebody would. What we learned from her is that leadership requires action, not just words. Learn to be a leader in your community and be the leader that your community actually needs. Learn how to take calculated risk and push forward even when afraid. We have to remember to help others rise as we rise. Mentor and uplift other people. Don't just seek freedom for yourself or leadership for yourself. Support and organize to help empower other people in your community to be a leader. Faith and strategy go hand in hand. Pray, but plan. Tubman trusted God, but she also trained and strategized. Learned survival skills, financial literacy, and leadership tactics. Harriet Tubman wasn't just a freedom fighter. She was a military strategist, an abolitionist, a suffragist, a caregiver, and most importantly, a leader. She helped to free over 300 people directly through her work in the Underground Railroad and an additional 700 through the military operation that she led. She fought in the Civil War. She opened homes for the elderly. She risked her life repeatedly for the freedom of others. She proved that one person's courage absolutely can change the world, because she absolutely did. Never stop fighting for freedom is what we learned from her. And that's your own freedom and the freedom of those around you and that you care about. Every great dream begins with a dreamer, and Harriet Tubman was a dreamer that we can all learn a whole heap from. So, in all of this, remember, do what you need to do to be more than okay, because you deserve to be more than okay. And absolutely do what you need to do to live a life you love, because you deserve to live a life you love. But while you're living a life you love and being more than okay, make sure to have some impact and leave the world a place that is much better because you were in it than it would be if you weren't. All right? That is the final Black History Month entry, but it is not the final entry on Black history. Hello. I'm excited to continue this series and to share more with you about the amazing contributions and strides of Black people, of Black programming in these United States, and then also globally. So, you know, Black History Month ends today, but the learning about the contributions of Black people never ends. Gotcha? Get it? Got it good. Okay? Love you, mean it. Good night.